Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It is our second and the final day of CareerNext 2021, organized by the Candidate Council of CFA Society Sri Lanka as part of the event series organized to commemorate the 20th anniversary of the society. And I take this opportunity to thank each and every one of you for being here with us today. We would like to kindly draw your attention to the CFA Society Sri Lanka's job portal, which helps all the job seekers out there to find their dream job, and employers can sign up themselves and advertise the available job opportunities. We are glad to inform you that our event is live streaming through YouTube and Facebook channels of CFA Society Sri Lanka. At this moment, I would like to thank our official sponsors, Colombo Stock Exchange and Acuity Partners Private Limited, for all the support given towards the success of CareerNext 2021. Now I cordially invite Mr. Richardson Moraes, CFA, a Candidate Council Committee member of CFA Society Sri Lanka, to speak a few words about today's event.
Hi guys. So I would who will be giving the presentation today, and they'll be sharing the ideas. And also I would like to thank all the audience that we have, that is it will be the potential candidates and the current candidates and also the CFA charter holders. Thank you for all your participation. Especially to mention, we also have on board Mr. Rajiva Bananayaka, who is the CEO of Colombo Stock Exchange, who will also be joining us at today's program. And I hope you all had a good session yesterday. If any of you guys have missed the session yesterday, you can always watch it. The recording is available on YouTube. You can have a look at it. And we had a set of companies who gave us different ideas about the type of work which is done, and also various job opportunities available, and also how the CFA qualification adds value. Special to mention, I think we've also been reminding you guys about it, that CFA qualification is not just only about looking at opportunities into finance, but it also gives you opportunities into various other sectors and industries as well. And also guys, I would like to today also we'll be having different companies who will be presenting us with different ideas, and as well as different job opportunities available and the sort of work that they do. And at the end of the session, we will also be having a soft skills training, which will be conducted by Mr. Robert. Danusha will be providing more details about him and about the session. So it will be a good, it will be about managing a personal brand, and it will be a good interactive session. So please stay back and attend this event as well. And also guys, we'll be sharing the CFA program booklet, which will be on the chat. So you guys, those of you who are potential candidates who are interested in if you are planning to do the CFA qualification in the future, you can have a look at the CFA program, the exam structure as well. And also guys, if you have any sort of suggestions or any questions that you all have, you can always drop it on our chat, and we'll be attending to it then and there. Thanks Danusha, thanks for the time, and sit back and enjoy the rest of the event.
Thank you very much for briefing today's session. It is time to start the first segment of the day 2, which is the information session by the companies. Before moving on to the session, I would like to remind you that if you have any questions, please drop those in the comment section, and we will raise those at the latter part of this segment. There will be 6 company presentations, which will be done by the professionals of NDB Capital Holdings, TW Corporations, Stacks, Asia Securities, Colombo Stock Exchange, and Linear Wealth Management. To begin with, I would like to call upon Mr. Nilendra Veerasinghe, CFA, Chief Corporate Advisory Officer of NDB Capital Holdings, to share his thoughts. Over to you, Mr. Nilendra.
Thank you, everyone. Let me quickly again introduce myself. So my name is Nilendra Veerasinghe. I head the Corporate Advisory Division at NDB Investment Bank. So basically, in the 15 minutes allotted to me, what I plan to do is I'll run through a quick presentation of our group so that I can introduce the various companies within the entire group that carry out the different aspects of the capital markets business of the NDB group, and then probably have a quick introduction in terms of my personal development as a financial services professional, and then probably open it out for a couple of questions. So let me quickly get my presentation on screen. Yeah, I hope my screen is visible to all of you. So to quickly start off with, NDB Capital Holdings Limited is basically a near fully owned subsidiary of NDB Bank, which is a listed entity on the Colombo Stock Exchange. And within the NDB Capital Holdings group, we have 5 different main, I would say, businesses. Of course, 6 entities, given that we have 2 legal entities to carry out the private equity business. So in terms of the 5 different verticals businesses, I represent NDB Investment Bank, the fee-based investment banking services provider in Sri Lanka. And then we also have a similar operation based out of Bangladesh in Dhaka. That's NDB Capital Limited. We also have Sri Lanka's largest private sector asset manager, that's NDB Wealth Management. I'll go into the details separately. And then we have NDB Securities, a stockbroking entity, and NDB Zephyr Partners, which is a joint venture entity between Zephyr Private Equity based out of New York, which launched and has nearly concluded their private equity fund, Emerald Sri Lanka Fund 1, which is the largest country-focused dedicated PE fund in Sri Lanka. So this is in a bird's eye view what the group kind of comprises in terms of the different entities and businesses. So let me just quickly go into the individual entities. So NDB Capital Holdings, apart from being the parent company for the group, also has a proprietary portfolio balance sheet where there is a separate investment arm which invests in listed and unlisted equities, debt, both again on the listed space and the unlisted space. So essentially, it's what you would call a buy-side operation. So there's a corpus of funds, a portfolio that is deployed across these different types of assets and instruments. Let me move on to the next entity. So the entity that I am presently working in, that is NDB Investment Bank. So for the benefit of the potential CFA candidates and undergraduates also joining this live stream, let me introduce the concept of investment banking and what essentially happens. So as an investment bank, what we do, I would say, summed up in one sentence, is to structure and place financial instruments that meet the risk-return criteria of various capital providers that you have in the market. Now, the simplest way of a company getting capital is to go to a bank and borrow. But beyond that, in our financial system, in any financial system, you have many other sources of financial assets or providers of financial capital. That might include institutional investors like provident funds, pension funds, insurance companies, unit trust companies, high net worth individuals, all of these different segments or types of capital providers. So essentially what we as an investment bank do is we look at a client's requirement for capital and then structure instruments that can meet the risk return parameters of these different investor groups and move capital from these capital providers into the capital needs that these entities have. So essentially, that's what we do as an investment bank. So we started off back in 1997, in fact, as a joint venture between Citibank and NDB. Later, fully acquired by National Development Bank, NDB, and now as a fully owned subsidiary. And in terms of how we are organized, so we have a corporate advisory division and a debt capital markets team. So the debt capital markets team, as the name suggests, gets involved in anything from the short end to the long end, different types and flavors of debt instruments. On the corporate advisory side, essentially it's equity capital markets, which is raising money through public markets like IPOs, secondary public offerings, and then on the private side, raising private equity on behalf of clients who need growth capital, and then mergers and acquisitions being the other mainstay, apart from various other corporate finance related advisory services that we provide. So that's essentially how we are organized in two divisions. And as NDB-IB, we take pride in having executed some of the largest transactions across different types of financial instruments, asset classes in the financial markets of the country, including largest public equity raising, largest hybrid capital raising, largest in terms of bonds, securitization, various types of securitization, and then different other hybrid debentures as well that have come to the market in the recent times. So I think we take pride in being part of executing some of these largest transactions. And also something that is very ingrained in our DNA is the fact that we need to keep innovating and doing new things. So being first in terms of introducing various structures, mechanisms to the market, be it green shoe options, book building, cornerstone tranches for IPOs, and then new products, new instruments. So essentially, it's about looking at what advanced markets have done before us, tweaking that to meet the regulatory environment in this country, the needs of the investors and the capital providers, and continuously innovating on that basis to meet the needs of our financial markets. So that's something that, again, we take a lot of pride in. And I mean, the work done by NDB-IB has been recognized multiple times, especially by the Euromoney magazine, where we've been awarded as the best investment bank in the country for almost 9 consecutive years as of now. So in the interest of time, let me skip through some of these and go into the rest of the entities. NDB Capital, I'll mention this Bangladeshi operation for the sake of completion, but we do not recruit for the Bangladeshi operation from within Sri Lanka. It's obviously local talent in Dhaka that we recruit. Nevertheless, for completion's sake, we are basically the only international investment bank which has physical presence in Bangladesh. And given the growth in that country, we see a lot of opportunity there. And apart from raising capital for clients in that country, both on the equity and debt side, we've been playing a very active role connecting the two countries, Sri Lanka and Bangladesh, by taking some of the largest Sri Lankan clients out there into Bangladesh, because it provides a much larger base of consumers, base of population, and especially certain companies on the infrastructure side. There's a lot of demand and opportunity there who have, and some of our companies have made use of that by moving there. So we operate as a link between these two countries, given our presence on both sides in terms of introducing opportunities to grow for our clients in Sri Lanka as well. So our license in Bangladesh right now, our operation is restricted to fee-based investment banking, but our license allows for a much broader scope, a merchant banking license, which we intend to leverage on and launch several new aspects of the total investment banking proposition in that country as well. There again, their success has been recognized multiple times with various awards being vested on them. Moving on to the asset management business. So again, going back, NDB Capital, with its proprietary portfolio, is a buy-side business. NDB Investment Bank in Sri Lanka and our Dhaka operation, essentially sell-side investment banking. And then when it comes to NDB Wealth, one of the largest, I would say the largest private sector fund management company in the country. So almost 175 billion in assets under management. So that's a little below $1 billion in AUM, which is sizable. And almost a 25-year history of managing equity and fixed income portfolios. So basically, if you look at the different segments within NDB Wealth, you have the pure institutional asset management business, the private wealth business, which is focused on family offices and high net worth individuals, and then the retail proposition, which mainly has the unit trust funds for retail investors to invest their capital and savings in. So that's the three different segments that NDB Wealth focuses on. So basically, the operation is essentially working within the investment risk and return appetites, which are highlighted in an investment policy statement of a particular client for which they are handling their funds, be it a retail individual, a high net worth, a family office, or institution, and then having a strong research and asset identification team who go in and deploy this either in fixed income or equity-based securities, so that there are returns generated in line with the risks taken by these assets. So there's a strong in-house research team within this organization, and of course the normal middle office and back office operations, which ensure that they strictly follow the guidelines of their investment mandates when going about their investment business. Moving on to NDB Securities. So essentially, again, the company has been around for more than 25 years, dealing with more than 50,000 local retail, high net worth, institutional, and foreign clients. Essentially, if you look at this, so NDB Securities, you have the research segment, which would be most relevant to this audience, that is the CFA candidates and potential candidates. In recent times, we've gone through a significant revamping on the research side, where NDB Securities is now actively looking into expanding on their research capabilities as well. So this is another area of interest, particularly from an opportunities point of view to this audience. Moving into the final cog in the wheel, which is NDB Zephyr. So this is the largest country-focused dedicated private equity fund. And given that NDB Capital Markets Group was present in the investment banking space, naturally there was a gap identified in Sri Lanka not having enough sizable, scalable SMEs which are ready for maybe the sizable M&A business or potential IPOs via listings. So the gap essentially was that there was a gap in funding for small and medium-sized enterprises in terms of scaling up to be big enough to be attracted for M&A or large-scale IPOs. So this gap or this void was being filled with the launch of this Emerald Sri Lanka Fund 1 managed by NDB Zephyr Partners. And NDB tied up with Zephyr, which is a private equity firm based out of New York, who have funds both in South Asia, Africa, and the US to get the requisite expertise and launch this fund. And apart from NDB and Zephyr, who have invested in this fund, there are a multitude of foreign investors, including IFC, DEG, FMO, Proparco, so on and so forth, who have committed capital and participated in this first fund that has been launched and now nearing full deployment. So in the interest of time, I'll skip through some of these slides and end off my presentation with this particular slide. So broadly speaking, from a CFA charter holder or candidates' point of view or potential candidates' point of view, as NDB Capital Holdings Group, the kind of opportunities that we would have is summarized here. So at NDB Capital Holdings, which is the holdco itself, like I said, there's an investment team looking at mainly fixed income and equity, both of the listed and unlisted space. At NDB Investment Bank, it's mostly structuring and placing. So it's a sell-side role when it comes to equity debt instruments, and also I would say right now the most active part of our business being mergers and acquisitions. And then when it comes to NDB Wealth Management, again, a buy-side role where we have strong in-house research and fund management skill sets required, and essentially a portfolio management and fund management roles within that entity. Moving on to NDB Securities, like I mentioned, so it's all about the research team where CFA candidates and CFA charter holders who have that training will see a significant kind of practical application of those skills within the research team of NDB Securities. And then at NDB Zephyr Partners, basically in terms of deploying the private equity assets, it's all about private equity analysts and associates being the opportunities available. So that's in a nutshell what NDB Capital Group has to offer. So I'll end off with a few minutes of my experience within the group. So I've basically I've started off. My first degree is in engineering, had nothing to do with financial services, and I'm proud to say that doing my CFA exams and getting the charter really helped me make that transition. And I believe, I mean, whoever who's listening and is contemplating on pursuing a CFA program, the skill set you learn and the knowledge you gather by doing CFA really equips you for the financial services industry, particularly these roles and opportunities that I mentioned that we as NDB Capital Group is presenting. So like I said, coming off from an engineering background back in 2009, getting on to CFA, starting with my level 1 exams really helped me transition. And I would say has really helped me, help my career take off as well. And in terms of career progression, it can take you places. So having joined NDB Investment Bank back in 2009, I was with the organization for about almost 3.5-4 years. Then I moved overseas for my master's education as well, and then worked in a bulge bracket global investment bank based out of the investment banking division in Singapore, and decided to return back back in 2015, where and I've been with NDBIB since then. So I think it's a qualification that will really help you leapfrog your aspirations in the financial services industry if you really like it. So it's something that definitely will help your careers. And just one final comment in terms of what we look for as NDB Capital Holdings and the different companies within the group when we recruit. So I think something that's really important is being passionate about what you do. So it's not about, you know, just getting into a job where you're trying to you know, get in there because the salary is attractive or because you hear a lot about it, but you really need to be passionate about this business, about investment banking, about the various verticals in financial services, in financial markets within our group that I mentioned. So that's something that's really important, and your attitude to really roll up your sleeves, learn new things, because I mean, there is no one, I think, in this industry that can claim, you know, he or she knows it all. I mean, we are constantly learning. It may be a new industry, it may be a new product or instrument that we are structuring. So being humble enough to bite the bullet, learn, keep yourself updated, read up what is relevant, and continuously commit yourself to improve your knowledge. That's something very important. And thirdly, last but not least, values. It's an industry that we work with a lot of confidential, market sensitive information. So I think the set of values that an individual has can really impact the reputation of an organization. So that's something that we are very careful in terms of assessing. Of course, there are very strong compliance procedures and ethical standards put in, and CFA as a qualification also highlights a lot about this in terms of having the right framework to encourage ethical and value-driven behavior. But I think it's very important that candidates and potential employees are really committed to ethics and values as well, in particularly in pursuing a financial career in financial services, and I'm sure as in any career as well. So that's a brief of my background and what we as NDB Capital Holdings have to offer. So I'll stop there and turn it over to the audience. Happy to take any questions if we have time.
Hi, Nilendra. Sorry, I think Dhanush is having a bit of internet issue. Yeah, I think there was a question with regard to for CFA candidates, what are the sort of job positions that would sort of like be ideal for someone who is studying for CFA candidates. But I think in your presentation, I think you've already touched on that. Maybe just to end things, since we are short on time, like how would someone who is interested in applying for a position at NDB, what is the sort of the process for applying for a job?
Yeah, so in terms of opportunities, I think as an investment bank, as a knowledge-based business, we don't have routine year-round recruitment programs, but any candidate who is seriously interested in pursuing a career is definitely welcome to reach out to us. I think Prarthana, who heads HR for NDB Capital, her contact details are probably with the CFA Society. So if you can just share her contact details, and we'll be more than happy to sit down and have a chat with you, understand that particular candidate's aspirations and aptitude for an opportunity in the financial services sector, and take it from there.
Okay, thanks very much, Nilendra. And yeah, thanks very much for your time. Yeah, I think we can move on to our next speaker, who will be Thilan Vijay from TW Course. So yeah, would like to invite him to make his presentation.
Yes, can I be heard?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, 1 second. Yes, good afternoon, everyone. I think I'm the most senior of all the investment bankers presenting. Let me give you a quick background before I put up my PowerPoint presentation. In late 1991, I was part of the founding shareholders of an investment bank in the form of Asia Capital. And in 1993, 1994, we became the largest investment bank, including the largest stockbroker in just 1.5 years of being set up. And this company grew from an initial capital of $25 million, $25,000 to being the top among the top 15 public listed companies in just 3.5 years. So it was almost like today's .com era. We never anticipated such value creation, but nevertheless, as certain good things must come to an end, with the advent or the decline of the capital markets in the late 1990s, I sold out of Asia Capital along with the founders, and I became chairman of the board of investment. And during my tenure at the board of investment, I'm happy and proud to say that a team who was predominantly in their 20s, quite a few, I would say 3 or 4 of whom were partially qualified CFA or in the process of getting fully qualified, were responsible for pioneering public-private partnerships in Sri Lanka. If some names are familiar to Varuna Rajapaksa, who was at John Keel's, Mano Nanakara, were part of my team. And we pioneered Sri Lanka's first ever PPP in the port sector, the SAGT. I led the negotiations on the government side with John Keel's. We were involved in privatizing telecom. We were involved in PPPs in the power sector, structuring deals such as Lanka Bell, Suntel. And this team of people in the 20s and 30s, I was in my mid-30s at the time, we were able to finalize or financially close $800 million of PPP transactions at a time the country was at war. So that highlights the fact that the CFA qualification is absolutely vital for the government. And it is somewhat sad for me to see that the government has not outsourced sufficient financial structuring transactions to the private sector, the investment banking community, in order to generate more employment opportunities for CFAs. Because if you look at the public sector restructuring program, for example, I was also chairman of the Public-Private Partnership Agency, an honorary position I held between 2017 and 2019. I voluntarily resigned a few months after this particular government got elected. We presented a complete plan on restructuring and privatizing Sri Lankan Airlines, restructuring many of the state-owned organizations. However, the government at the time did not have the will to implement some of these transactions. So I would like to, at the outset, recognize the competency and capability of CFA graduates in being involved in highly complex transactions, be it privatizations or PPPs. In terms of once I quit the board of investment, I decided to specialize in real estate, and I was joint CEO of Asian Hotels Properties. And there again, principles of valuation came into play because our mandate was to sell the company after creating value within the company within a period of 5 years. So in fact, we were so value driven in terms of the share price that we hit the share valuation that we had forecasted in year 4 within year 2, and happened to sell the company to John Keel's Holdings. So I was behind the sell side. I was the sell side advisor whilst being the CEO of the transaction that ended up with John Keel's buying Asian Hotels Properties, which is the owning company of Cinnamon Grand, Cinnamon Lakeside, in 1994, late 1993, in fact. And then I was part of the transition team. And I decided to then take my bonus and become more of an entrepreneur and help the Dilma company start their own leisure business from ground up. I still serve on their boards. So Ceylon Tea Trails, I helped co-create. Subsequently, I also was group managing director of Overseas Realty, the owning company of the World Trade Center. And there again, I adopted a value creation principle of raising capital in order to build value in the business. And I actually opted to resign after 1 year because I did not get the balance sheet support in order to make ORCL a growth company. And these were, again, principles I learned while being an investment banker, that what's most important is how you manage your balance sheet and how you optimize capital allocation. And these are fundamental principles that you adopt when you have a CFA qualification. And the basic principle on which that I opted to move on, again, back to becoming an entrepreneur, was that I was keen that overseas realty finishes Havelock City in 4 years, provided the funding plan to finish Havelock City in 4 years. Whilst it was initially approved, subsequently there was a reversal in the thinking of the board. And now looking back 10 years later, Havelock City is still under construction. So it has, I must say, working with CFAs, though I do not have a CFA qualification, I have an engineering background and a degrees in business and economics as well. But working with CFAs has tremendously helped me in running businesses in the past. So TW Corp, or TWC as we are called now, was created 10 years ago actually. Is the screen visible to all of you?
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, okay. So TWC is roughly 10 years old, but it operated as a somewhat of a company under the radar screen until last year, because I had one foot overseas and I was involved in certain overseas transactions and my family was overseas. But we are essentially the only company in Sri Lanka which has personnel, board members and staff who have both local and international experience in investment banking and law. We brought in the legal expertise into the company in order to ensure that we look at the legal aspects of structuring, particularly PPP and various other M&A transactions right at the outset, rather than waiting till the end, so that there is greater prospects of closing transactions. So my decision to actually scale up TWC at the end of last year was primarily due to COVID. And if you look at the evolution of companies like BlackRock and Blackstone, they've taken advantage of economic crises and essentially built and created an intellectual capital to take advantage of countries that are in trouble, such as Sri Lanka, and companies that are in trouble, and structure transactions that would actually be win-win propositions for whether it's countries or companies as well. So mine is really the in addition to the fact that we have a team with international experience, we also look at cultivating deep sectoral expertise. And at the moment and that would lead us to handling better M&A transactions. And we are currently specializing in maritime sector, real estate and tourism, agribusiness and exports. And they are supported by an advisory board that is part of my company. So our expertise is categorized into 4 areas: corporate finance and strategic advisory, structured finance, investment management and private equity, and PPP structuring and policy advocacy. So I'm not going to explain the M&A and the corporate finance side of things, but under the structured finance vertical, we brought in again board members and management teams who have structured complex transactions in the debt and quasi debt space internationally, and we are bringing some of that technology to Sri Lanka, whether it is in debt syndication or blended financing, Islamic financing, distressed asset portfolio restructuring, etc. In the private equity space, we have already launched a Cayman Island-based private equity fund. Our investment mandate is to look at export-oriented companies where we would like to make local companies regional champions. And the difference in our private equity is that virtually our entire management team have had an entrepreneurial background, particularly some of our board members and senior members of the team. So when we go into a business and do our due diligence with a view to investing, we usually take a much more hands-on approach. So essentially our due diligence process goes right into the business strategies of the company. And we are also looking to taking equity stakes in companies that are on the cusp of becoming export-oriented as well. So as a consequence, we look at also strategies where we would, as I mentioned earlier, provide companies with capital offshore so that they can become regional champions and take their technology and businesses to other parts of the world. Just on the PPP structuring side, I have seen a lacuna in the market, both locally and internationally, for public-private partnership structuring. The important thing to note here is that as countries become highly leveraged due to the current level of money printing that's going on, more and more private investment would have to be attracted into traditional areas of public investment. And as I was mentioning earlier, in the late 90s, when we did PPPs, we did hospitals on PPP structures, we did affordable housing, apart from the normal power ports and telecom sector. And now we're looking also at PPP structures in agribusiness. And this particular practice, we expect it to grow regionally and internationally. In the latter part of this year, I'm hiring a Sri Lankan with international experience in PPPs, with a view to taking our expertise to Bangladesh, Africa, and the BIMSTEC region, where I see a significant lacuna in expertise in this particular area. And doing PPPs require very complex and deep research into policy. And therefore, we also specialize in policy research and policy advocacy. I think I have a few more minutes. Just moving on to the next slide. So one of the unique aspects of the team that I have is that virtually about 50% of our team have had some experience in transaction structuring within government. So that provides us with certain unique insights into how governments work, whether it's privatizations or PPPs. And we believe, should any government, whether it's Sri Lanka or overseas, look at structuring complex PPP transactions as a consequence of their post-COVID economic reform strategies, we have a team, and we are well positioned to advise such countries or even companies. Our team, as I mentioned earlier, have conducted transactions globally, even prior to getting involved in TWC, in the Middle East, in Asia, in North America, and in Europe. Very briefly, what are the recently concluded transactions that we've done? I'm only touching on this because we are relatively unknown in the market, and that was more by design than anything else. So these are transactions that are ongoing or we've concluded in 2019 onwards. So we've done work in Nepal, where we financially closed a 85% acquisition of a power plant on behalf of private foreign parties who are buying out the Nepalese. We were also advisors both on the sell side and on the buy side for the recent sale of Hemas's hotels, Serendip Hotels, to LOLC. We are also involved in debt syndication of a very, very large public listed company from overseas who are entering into the logistics space in Sri Lanka. We are engaged by the government of Maldives on PPP advisory, and we hope to deepen our relationship with the government of Maldives. We are involved in actively advising 3 companies on 3 large-scale real estate projects on Port City. We are also involved in growth capital sourcing and potentially private equity investment in one of Sri Lanka's largest listed companies, where we feel that company can go from primarily domestic orientation to export orientation through a process of M&As and organic growth. We are at the moment involved in doing due diligence on 4 export-oriented companies for purposes of investing from our PPE fund. We are involved in debt and equity raising for renewable energy projects and several sell-side mandates, and we've also done work on a PPP-related real estate in the Maldives. So, essentially, to summarize my thoughts on for those who have career aspirations. So as far as TWC is concerned, we expect to be hiring as we grow our PE, private equity portfolio, because as I mentioned earlier, we intend to be more deeply involved in the running of the companies than in traditional PE. And we intend on supporting our PE investee companies with a greater degree of analytical support in order to unlock growth potential. So as we expand our PE portfolio, yes, we expect to be hiring. The second area of growth in our company will be funds under management. We are at the moment planning our second fund, and we may also go in for our additional funds. And as our fund base grows, we expect to be making more hires. The third area we will be looking at hiring is, as of course travel might have to return to normal for this to happen, as we grow our local and international business on public-private partnership structuring. And there again, as I mentioned, the head of that vertical is a Sri Lankan person who has internationally done PPPs. I have done PPPs locally. Probably 60% of all PPPs done in Sri Lanka, the larger ones, would have gone through my hands either as a private investment banker or during my days in government. So in terms of final comments, in terms of advice for CFA graduates or those who are studying for their CFA exams, as previous speaker mentioned, number one, integrity. You should be looking at nothing but reputation. In fact, recently we are in fact bidding for a relatively large project that is connected to PPPs in climate adaptation, and the governance related documentation that we had to submit was quite substantial. And it is therefore quite important that when you decide on a career choice, that you join a company. I'm not saying that the investment banking business in Sri Lanka lacks integrity, but it is important. At times, I cannot say the same thing about capital markets. That's a separate conversation altogether. I've been lamenting at the deterioration of the level of integrity in the capital market since I was involved in stockbroking in the early 90s to today. The second aspect is being strategic, innovative, and doing deep dives, far deeper dives into companies than traditionally one would do for stockbroking type research or even traditional PE. So we dive significantly deeper into companies in order to unlock value. Then how do we recruit? We recruit by primarily if you are interested in the job, you can contact Mr. Rasanja Pereira, who's senior vice president in charge of private equity investment. But we look at whether a particular candidate has a passion in a particular area that's relevant to the company. Recently, we recruited a CFA who just told me, Thilan, I'm keen to study impact investing. Maybe I'll go back to university or go overseas and learn impact investing and come back. So I told this particular person, no, you join our company and help build the impact investing business from ground up. And I'm happy that she joined the company. So I think my time is up. And if there are any questions, I would be very, very happy to answer questions that you have. Thank you.
It doesn't look like we have questions from the audience. Thank you very much, Mr. Thilan, for your valuable insights. Let me now cordially invite Mrs. Rashmi Pires Paranavitanu, CFA, and Mr. Sean Silla from Stats to discuss their view on today's topic.
Thanks, Dhanusha. Hope I'm clear and can be heard clearly.
Yeah, all clear.
Okay. Again, thanks for giving us this opportunity to talk a little bit about Stacks and what sort of career opportunities are there for CFAs who may be interested in the kind of work that we do. So today presenting will be myself, Rashmi. I'm a CFA as well as my colleague Sean. So to start things off, let me introduce Sean and ask him to give a bit of background about Stacks and the kind of work that we do. Over to you, Sean.
Thanks very much for that, Rashmi. I'll just share my screen on the presentation. Can everyone see my screen?
Yeah, Sean, go ahead.
Perfect. I'll just put it on full screen. So once again, it's a pleasure to be invited to present a little bit about Stacks, which I will be doing, followed by Rashmi talking a little bit about the opportunities that are there for CFA candidates at a management consultancy firm like Stacks. So a little bit about Stacks' background, in particular, that we started in Boston over 25 years ago. And in Boston, we started as a very small firm in the back of someone's house in a garage. That was the founder, Rafi Musher. And over time, we started working with private equity firms in particular, doing their commercial due diligences. Pretty soon, after just a few years, Stack started growing, and we started getting on board a number of private equity firms, such as the world famous KKR, Bain Capital, to Apollo, to many others who have now, and we have grown that portfolio to be over 100 plus right now. And we still work with them today on a number of different types of due diligences around the world. So over time, we expanded our offices into Chicago and New York. And in 2005 is when we started the office in Colombo. So with all this work, we were mainly, even in Colombo, doing work for our clients in US, particularly when it comes to the APAC region. So the Colombo office became like the Stacks' hub for everything that was going on in the Asian region, including Australia. And it has over time, this has grown even to doing a lot of work in the local arena, especially since the war ended. There was a demand for fact-based, insight-driven work, and that's where Stacks really came in with all the experience we've done with PE firms and their portfolio companies. And this is where we brought some of that expertise to the local market as well. So with over 200 engagements being done annually, globally and locally, over 3,000 engagements that we have done with our clients. We are probably the largest management consultancy firm in Sri Lanka with 85 plus employees. This is just our Colombo office. We have many more in our other 3 offices. And as I mentioned, our number of private equity firms, Fortune 500 companies, and local conglomerates and family businesses that we work with. And we always like to say that we are not specialized in a particular sector. We are very sector agnostic. We have a ton of experience in a number of different sectors. And this is not just limited to Sri Lanka, as I mentioned. We do have a lot of experience in these sectors, particularly in international markets. And since COVID happened, there has been a lot of interest, particularly in healthcare, in IT tech, and like such as wisdom management solutions, engagement types of softwares, things like that, which has become healthcare digitalization, which again, we have been involved in with a number of portfolio companies and PE firms who are looking into investing in that space. So it's been quite an exciting time. It's been different. It's been quite different from what we have seen before in terms of investing, but it has been very progressive and extremely interesting, given the current situation. There have been opportunities which have been identified, and it's been pursued quite aggressively. So we are present, as I mentioned, we have done work all over the world, whether it be in the Americas or the Middle East and the APAC region. We've done a number of different engagements. And I'll talk a little bit about the type of engagements we have done in the next couple of slides. So when it comes to working with our PE firms, we particularly work in 5 particular areas. One is strategy, where we actually help private equity firms come up with a winning plan in order for them to pursue the right type of investments. Then we come up with, okay, how can we narrow this down and come up with the right type of deals in the right type of countries? We go into the commercial due diligences, which is mainly looking at an investment thesis about how they can, what kind of, whether it really validates what they're really trying to do. And then we come up with how we can, in these portfolio companies that they take on board, how can we improve their performance and really create value by coming up with a 100-day plan after acquisition, looking at how they can look at new markets, looking at building up their product lines, etc. So that's everything that we do in order to help these portfolio companies meet the expectations that the PE firms have set out. And we also work with PE firms into also developing the exit strategies so that they can best get the maximum of the investment that they have gotten into with portfolio companies. So these are just some of the many clients that we have worked with globally. Some of them may have been very recognizable to a number of you, but it's been quite a great journey over the past 25 years for Stacks, and we're very proud to be working in such a dynamic industry, which has become, and in a number of different sectors which are now fast evolving, especially because of the pandemic. So when it comes to some of the portfolio that we have in Sri Lanka, we particularly work in things like strategy development, execution, and market validation. So these are particularly areas that Sri Lankan corporates or SMEs particularly use our services for, and that's in particular because we have gained this type of experience and using the right type of business models and tools and our network databases and our different types of investigatory kind of teams that we have in order to enhance the experience for companies to make better decisions on. And as part of some of these engagements, it also comes with operations optimization, people engagement, and as well as data analytics. Again, something we've built over the past 15 years. And now we are doing multiple global engagements as well as local engagements for a number of leading firms in data analytics as well. Beyond these type of engagements, we also do partner identification. We have helped a number of companies in Sri Lanka find the right type of partner that they can help grow their businesses, either locally or internationally, as well as looking at certain types of funding in order to help grow the business, seed funding, or it may be and other types, in order for them to take their business into the next level. And something that has been very popular amongst a number of chambers and conglomerates is to come up with white papers in order to inform the government about how they can bring in a new type of thinking or new type of business or explore certain areas of a sector that would add value to the Sri Lankan business landscape. So this is something we've been done particularly over the past 2 to 3 years. And it has come up with some really great results. And some of these are publicly available. And we'd be, just any requests for any one of them, we'd be happy to share some of these areas. And it has covered things like pharmaceuticals to IT, to investing in family businesses, etc. And what you see in this slide is just some of the companies that we have been fortunate to work with. This is just over the past 3 to 4 years. A number of them in different areas which they've helped them in, either in any of the areas I mentioned, whether it be strategy development or even in terms of execution, where we help take some of the strategies that either we have helped develop or something they have even developed internally, and getting them to a level that they actually see results from that strategy, rather than just being a document that's kept in a drawer somewhere and not really done anything about. So we help guide that process and make sure that that strategy becomes a realization. So in terms of even some of the international clients we work with, we have, as you can see, with 3M, Toyota, and a number of others, they have engaged us in order to help them with their growth plans as well, and a number of banks, NGOs, and even food and beverage companies as well. So I think I've done with my slides. As when Rashmi is done with hers, I'll be happy to take any questions you might have. Rashmi, it's all yours.
Thanks, Sean. So like Sean was talking about, so I'll actually, now that he has given a brief overview about Stacks and what we do in terms of the work we've done both internationally and locally. So I've also actually, I'm a CFA chartered holder as well, and I started my career back at Acuity Knowledge Partners, or when it was Amber Research. So I spent close to about 11 years at Amber, mostly on sell-side equity research. And when I left Amber around 2017, I also wanted to do a slight pivot and travel the path less chosen, and slightly away from capital markets and more into management or strategy consulting. And it has been quite a journey. And I think my experience again has been that, and I've seen this a lot more as well in the recent past, with many CFAs now actually working slightly outside the capital markets in corporates, in conglomerates, in multilateral agencies. And I think across the board, they've been able to add a lot of value to the companies that they work with. And so I'll just talk a little bit about apologies. It has been quite, an intense learning environment. And so if you can go actually to the next slide, Sean. So I think one thing that we really do as consultants is to really look at problem solving. And, if you look at a lot of our companies, whether they're local companies or global companies, most of the time they're day-to-day firefighting and not really looking at what's happening, and what's some of the disruption that's happening in their respective industries. So Sean, if you could go to the next slide. So this is where really consultants can come and help companies to really get back on the right track or be future ready, to really identify what's happening in the macro landscape and within their industries, and be if there are serious issues that they need to tackle with, how best to tackle them, as well as also to think long term. And I think that's really where most companies are really struggling. So our office in Colombo, we have, in our delivery team, really, we have three main teams: the research and consulting arm, the data analytics team, and the survey insights team. And most often when we actually work with a client, especially our local clients as well, we will create a team of, across all these verticals. We will bring in specialists across all these three areas, depending on the nature of the project. So, for example, if the project is, say, with a bank, and to look at their customer segmentation, we will then pull in the required consultants or analysts from, say, the data analytics team, and even the survey insights team, as well as even the research and consulting team, to basically develop the solution, to identify the gaps, and then present the recommendations. So one thing, I think, whether you're starting off your career or you're midway in your career, I think working in a company like Stacks can really add value to your CV, as well as not just your CV, but really your growth as an individual as well. I think one thing that really stands out is that you are working in a very data-driven culture. That's really something that spans across every project that we work on. So being a CFA and having that kind of analytical background really helps, because you can really use that to your advantage. So whether you're working with a client on their strategy for the next few years, the ability to look at business models and also understand the financial aspects of the business can really add value to that particular project. So you're also able to look at companies more holistically, and also look through the layers to understand what's really going on in a company when you look at their financial statements, etc. Why growth is slowing down or why profitability is muted. So you can really add a lot of value to a project. So for instance, if you're working with, say, the data analytics team, you can bring the business context, and really, if we are, say, developing a demand model for them or a demand planning model for them, to really bring in that business context on how it should be developed, taking into account the industry aspects as well as the company specific aspects. Apart from this, so we actually have several CFA candidates who are working right now at Stacks, and they've made a significant contribution and impact to the clients that they work with. The type of work is also, quite different from one project to another. Again, something that really helps you to keep developing your skill set, because you're not, the work is rarely ever repetitive. So you will work on one assignment, and then you may move on to a completely different assignment. We're not an investment bank per se, but we have worked with several companies to create pitch decks, investor memorandums, as well as identifying and attracting potential investors. So even on these type of assignments, the expertise of finance professionals such as CFA charter holders can come in quite handy. Even when we conduct market feasibility studies for companies when they're looking to enter into a new market, again, to calculate ROIs, having expertise of CFAs can really add a lot of value. So I won't take too much time since I think we're slightly over. But what I would really like to say is that one thing that, especially if you're starting off or you're a CFA candidate, one thing that really attracted me to consulting was also that the insights and recommendations that you present is often to the CEOs or the C-level management at these companies who know these companies inside out. But so the impact you can make by delivering value, and oftentimes this is real tangible value, by taking companies that are either stagnating or on a declining path, and then really helping transform these companies as well as SMEs. So that ability to create impact and really make your work really have an impact on the clients that you work with is really satisfying. So if you're interested in working with local companies and SMEs that are looking to grow in the region or globally, if you like problem solving and really looking at problems from the client's point of view, and if you like working in an environment that really challenges you to constantly develop your skill set and understand what's happening in business models and how industries are being shaped by technology and the disruption that keeps happening in a lot of industries, then I think you can really develop your skill set and really have a very successful career at a company like ours. So we would really invite anyone interested to join us, and I think you can go through our website, and also there's more information about us there. So with that, I'd like to wrap up our presentation. If you guys have any question, would be happy to answer. Sean and I are both happy to answer any questions.
We have one question from the audience. What are the job positions available for a person with CFA and analytics background at Stacks?
Yeah, so mostly we would recruit to our research and consulting team, and they would be hired either as, so we have a few positions, and we are constantly actually hiring them. And I think Sashant from our HR team has actually shared a link that actually has more information. So we hire at, junior consultants, consultants, as well as associate, senior associate. So depending on their past work experience, as well as their qualifications and their skill set, we would and based on the assessments that we conduct in our recruitment process, we would hire them accordingly. But most often than not, CFAs would always, more often than not, they'd be hired for our research and consulting team.
Perfect answer. Thank you very much, Mrs. Rashmi and Mr. Sean, for your valuable contribution.
Happy to be part of it, and thank you very much for having us, guys. Thanks a lot.
I would like to take this opportunity to thank our official sponsors, Colombo Stock Exchange and Acuity Partners Private Limited, for the support given to us CareerNext 2021. Further, I would like to remind you that if you have any questions, please drop those in the comment section. Next, it's my privilege to have Mr. Kavinda Pereira, a Senior Vice President, Research of Asia Securities, to address the gathering.
Thank you, Danusha. Hi, everyone. I hope I'm audible and visible. So let me start by sharing the screen. Okay, great. Good evening, everyone. My name is Kavinda Pereira. I'm Senior Vice President of Research at Asia Securities. And in the next 10 to 15 minutes, I will be taking you through some of the capital market focused opportunities that we at Asia Securities have for CFA candidates and CFA charter holders. To start off, Asia Securities is one of the diversified investment firms in Sri Lanka, providing an entire range of investment banking, research, equities, and wealth management services, mostly capital market focused activity. And one of the key features that we have, that we can talk about here is that in each of these segments, we have CFA, either CFA students or CFA charter holders. We have had them working for us. We currently have, and we will continue to hire CFA charter holders in these segments. Equity brokerage, if I just talk a little bit about the segments that we have under the Asia Securities Group umbrella. Equity brokerage is our largest business. It's essentially a trading house that facilitates the transactions of financial securities, and I'm talking about equity, stocks, debt instruments like debentures, and we cover domestic as well as international clients. This business is basically bread and butter. We've been in operation for about 30 years. In fact, 2020 was our 30th year anniversary, and we've consistently been in the top 3 ranked brokers in Sri Lanka, and we've been awarded the Best Stockbroker Award in 2018 and 2020 by Finance Asia. Asia Securities is also the preferred local execution partner for some of the leading frontier-focused international banks such as Credit Suisse, Renaissance Capital, Morgan Stanley, Telima, StoneX. And this is also supported by our leading research team. The research product that we produce is, was also considered as one of the best, and our CFA Capital Market Awards certify this to a large degree. We've been among the top 2 research firms for the last consecutive years. So the research team comes up with the investment ideas that the equity brokerage team executes, and the research team is also responsible for hosting one of Sri Lanka's largest investment conferences that we have every year, 4th year in running, and some of the more consistent and continuous investment education programs that that's managed by a local stockbroking firm in Sri Lanka. The investment banking section at Asia Securities is largely an advisory-based business that handles financial transactions, mergers and acquisitions, capital raising, initial public offerings, secondary offerings, the entire range of investment banking activities. And the team has actually carried out several landmark transactions in local capital markets, the most recent being the acquisition of Piramal Glass by the largest PE firm in the world. And we've also been awarded the Finance Asia Best Sri Lanka Deal Award back in 2017 for facilitating the transaction between Singer, and Singer was acquired by Haley's. So the investment banking team, again, has a lot of scope for CFA charter holders, CFA students to carry out the investment research work that they do, and also transaction-related work that they carry out. Wealth management is one of the newest additions to the Asia Securities Group, and this was started back in 2018, and is focused mainly on private wealth management services, and also managing unit trusts. Here again, you have a large body of research work that goes into carrying out these investments, structuring these investments, managing these investments, picking the right investments to maximize the return. So there's a lot of scope here as well for a CFA charter holder or a candidate to add value. The key strength in this business is the highly reputed team that run this. Private wealth management is largely a trust-based business, and the caliber of management that we have helps us get through this business. And we also have an extensive network that we manage through banks like Credit Suisse, which are big in the private banking space. And the main principles that guide us, if we are to talk about who Asia Securities are, the key things that we want to highlight, first, our values. We like to focus on the 3 I's, as we call it: integrity, insight, and innovation. These are the guiding values that drive our business, and any employee of Asia Securities is expected to have these values and be in line with these values. Integrity is essentially putting the client's interest first. Maintaining integrity for a financial management firm is extremely important, so that there's trust built between clients and the firm. Insight is providing the right information, the right ideas at the right time for our investors, so that they get an edge over the competitors in managing their finances. Innovation deals with the way we carry out our research, the way we distribute our research, the way we present our research. So it's basically these 3 guiding principles are the pillars of Asia Securities that we run with. The people component is an important part, being a financial institution. Large part of our team has global experience with deep domain and product expertise, and the businesses are headed by industry veterans who have decades of experience in running these individual businesses, hence are able to quickly adapt to changing conditions, as well as create new strategy and new products to support our clients. We believe in diversity. We believe in an empowered team. And one thing to highlight here is diversity is not a co-curricular activity for Asia Securities. It's actually part of our core values. It's embedded between integrity to come up with the best insights and to drive innovation. If you look at the company's track record, it's a 30-year-old company, which is now led by a new generation of management, new generation of experts, committed to high standards and providing differentiated inputs to our clients, leveraged by global partnerships. So life at Asia Securities for a new joinee, CFA charter holder or a candidate, is filled with opportunities to reach your full potential. Starting with learning and development, there's a lot of focus on learning and development within the firm, starting from the events that we host and managing events, as well as professional training and development programs that are typically catered to each team individual's requirements. And there's also KPIs set for training and development that the management team agrees on, depending on the requirements of the team, as well as the business priorities. In addition to that, there's also the opportunity to make positive contribution to community. And we're extremely proud of some of the programs that we have been doing under this, especially the partnership with Room to Read program. For those who are not familiar with it, Room to Read is a program that helps students stay in school, those who would otherwise fall out of going to school for different reasons. And Nation Securities is a proud partner of this and have been supporting this cause for some time. The company has a collaborative culture. It has a flat organizational structure that ensures that even the junior most employee can actually reach the higher levels if they perform well and on a merit-based system. And employee well-being is actually a key point of focus for us, not only during pandemic periods, but even before. We've had very healthy, health-focused healthcare system and time off for life's important events, and also remuneration which is competitive with market standards and also performance linked, because we believe in a meritocracy. Well, it's not all about work at Asia Securities. As you can see, we do have a very much a fun culture where we have external activities for employees, team activities, as well as we focus on the things that actually matter. Things like climate change. We are actually in the process of getting approval to be one of the first carbon neutral investment banks in Sri Lanka, and also promoting gender diversity and combating things like unconscious bias, which may hold back a firm from reaching its full potential. We have got some comments and feedback from some of our employees. I will not go through this in detail, but the key things that will stand out are the range of career progressions that we offer, ranging from different businesses, wealth management, investment banking, research. All of them require a similar skill set that chartered financial analysts possess, and a fast-tracked career path where you get to work directly with the top management and a closely knit team that supports you through your career. We also focus on learning and development, as I mentioned, and this is highlighted by some of the comments. So what lies ahead for you as a candidate, applying to Asia Securities? As I said, we have a relatively flat organizational structure, and that promotes hands-on learning. There's opportunity to learn directly from the top management who have decades of experience in different businesses, and structured feedbacks and reviews make sure that we keep you informed, keep everyone informed of development plans and progression, and also personal development programs, all lead to a rapid career progression within the organization. So with that, I'd like to close my presentation. If there are any questions, I'd like to take it at this time.
We'll be grateful if our participants could be directed on how they must apply to join Asia Securities.
Yes, absolutely. So we have, we will share an email address with all the participants that they can apply. And I think as many of the participating companies mentioned, we don't have a large hiring cycle, and it generally depends on the requirements that each business unit has. But there's always room for CFA candidates and charter holders to apply, and we will basically keep all that information in our database, and we will reach out to them as and when there are opportunities arise.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kawindu. It was a great hearing from you.
Thank you, Dhanusha.
Now I humbly invite Mr. Rajiva Bandaranaike, the Chief Executive Officer of Colombo Stock Exchange, to share his thoughts.
Good evening, and thank you, CFA, for giving us this opportunity to be part of your career guidance workshop today. Unfortunately, I don't have a presentation, so you'll have to contend looking at my face. I didn't really have time to prepare. But let me share some insights today on the stock exchange. And I'll first talk a little bit about the company itself, and then get on to the different functions so that you can get a better understanding. We have only one stock exchange, so you will find that the areas are somewhat a little specialized, but that does not mean that it's difficult to enter, or for that matter, even to exit the CSC. So I will, as I said, give a little bit of insight into the operation itself. Working at the exchange is a unique opportunity, because being here will give you an insight into the business and corporate sector in a manner that you will not probably get from anywhere else. So to that extent, a great place to work and learn and develop yourself. We have maintained an excellent reputation as an organization, both locally and international. I'm talking about the organization, not the stock market. So as most of you know, we are the license operator of the stock market. So what we do, in fact, is to facilitate the capital raising function for both debt and equity, and of course the secondary market trading activity for all listed products. So we are not a market regulator, although we do perform certain limited frontline regulatory functions to the extent of the CSC rules. So the CSC, again, is a company in the private sector and not a government institution, as many people perceive it to be. We have a 35-year-old history, incorporated in 1985, financially sound with a strong balance sheet and a P&L. We are operationally profitable, and we have a small team, 150 employees in all. We work on a value system based on integrity, passion, care, teamwork, and of course, professionalism. And we would encourage like-minded people to join and work with us. So we have a professional a team of people working, except for the rankers. We have a positive work attitude and a progressive work environment. We have policies to ensure strong governance. We focus on employee development. We have a good gender balance. About over 40% are female overall, as well as among even the senior management. And we have a diversity of work experience. Retention rates are fairly good. So if you talk about our four main product areas, we have the primary markets. We have the secondary market, where the secondary market trading activity takes place. And then we have the market data function. And of course, we have the depository function. So those are the four broad areas, but I'll get into that in a little more detail as we go along. So just to give you an insight about our strategy. So we have 5 focus areas. The firstly is about innovation, and it's about the digitization of the stock exchange, both internally and externally. Then secondly is about the changes that we are trying to do to the governance structure to demutualize the stock exchange, which means we are converting the company from a company limited by guarantee to a company limited by shares, and eventually to list the stock exchange in the exchange itself. So that's a major structural change, and the legal reforms on. Then thirdly is about broad base in the market, binding the investor pool, both the retail and the foreign investors. Then fourth is about building investor confidence, and there we are talking about more effective regulation and governance. And the fifth part of it, the most important part, is about increasing the breadth and the depth of the market. So there we have several lines. One is about reactivating the primary market. We've recently had some success in the primary market. We had the largest IPO in since 2011. We have 3 more in the pipeline on equity. We had the first SME board listing being approved. We had also a public utility coming in to issue debt, and we may get some more as well. Then the second part of it is about increasing the secondary market liquidity, to increase the liquidity in the market. And the third part of it is about the product diversification. We have, for the most part, we are a 1 product or 2 product market. So the plans are to increase the product suite. We have already had the real estate investment trust rules being gazetted, and there are some tax issues that are being sorted out, and we need to get those gazetted and done, what was announced in the previous budget. Then the second product is the OTC market for repos, for corporate debentures. Then we are also working on the design of a gold-linked product. We're working with the banks to do that. Stock borrowing and lending is another product that's we are working on. And finally, the US dollar denominated listings for both, for local companies, for both debt and equity. So these are some of our focus areas, just to give you an insight of what we have in store and what we're hoping to do. Now, if you look at the exchange itself, to give an idea of what are the potential areas that a candidate really can look at inside. So we have 14 divisions, and I'll give a bit of insight into some of the frontline areas. So we have research and strategy. There we deal most people who work for research and strategy, mostly with background in statistics and management. So we do research and data analytics. We do strategic planning, analysis and management reporting. And then that area also acts as our knowledge center for the management and staff. Then we have an enterprise risk area. And there again, the people there are mostly with a statistical and finance background. So there we do the organizational wide enterprise risk management, the business continuity manage process, the BCP part of it is also done there. And of course, a very important function of the post-trade settlement, that is the settlement functions of the secondary market, is also coordinated at that end. Then thirdly, we have the IT area. Of course, all IT specialists. We have IT infrastructure management, we have network specialists, database management, operations, project management, we have information security, and of course, software solutions. So it's a fairly large team which does the IT operations at the CSC. Then we have the legal division, which attends to all the litigation, the grievance handling, of course, the governance and the company secretarial work and the legal advisory. And for connected to that, we also have a regulatory policy and compliance area. Here again, like the legal team, it's mostly consists of legal professionals. And there they look at organizational compliance, as well as they are the main rule-making body or place where they compile all the rules for the exchange. Then we also have a listings division. There mostly we have analysts and lawyers working in listings, where we do the review and approval of all new and subsequent listing applications. Then we have a what we call a corporate affairs area, which consists of mostly chartered accountants. And there we review all of the financial statements of listed companies, annual reports as well as quarterly reports based on a risk-based method. Then we have a subsidiary, fully owned subsidiary, the CDS, or the Central Depository System. There we have a mix of those with a management background, lawyers, analysts, and even sales professionals. There we distinctly have 2 areas. One is a operational area, where we conduct the depository operations, maintenance of CDS accounts, or opening of accounts. And then the other area, which we established recently, is very interesting. It's a corporate solutions area, where the CDS acts as a registrar and provides services to listed companies, similar to the registrar functions, and handling most of their corporate issues like rights issues, dividends, etc. And that's a revenue generating unit. So we have a sales unit and operations unit within that, and very business focused, if I put it that way. Then of course we have a marketing division, which has mainly marketing specialists. So their role is about broad basing the market, the retail end of it, foreign institutional, engage in industry education, organize events, PR and media, quite strong on social media, and of course the branding activity. Then we also have two specialist divisions. One is broker supervision, and there again we have mostly analysts with or with a finance background. And under broker supervision, we do evaluate the performance of stockbroker firms. We assess the risk exposure of those stockbrokers. We do periodic reviews and audits, check for compliance, and then of course initiate disciplinary action in terms of the rules. So that's the broker supervision function. The second specialist area is on market surveillance. And there again, we have analysts working in market surveillance. And there they do monitoring of the market monitoring. Then also coordinating the dissemination of corporate disclosures. And of course, investigations, the preliminary investigations into market offenses like insider trading, front running, market manipulation, etc. And then that information is then referred to the regulator, Securities and Exchange Commission. So they perform a probably important function in that sense. Of course, we have then the support divisions like any other company, the internal audit, which consists of accountants, auditors. Then we have HR, we have all HR professionals there. And then the finance and admin area, which has accountants and finance professionals. So as an organization, we believe that the capital market has great potential, and we have very ambitious plans for expansion of the market with a global footprint. As you may already be aware that the stock market has had about its third best year in history with record volumes last year, and seeing the trend continuing. We have also seen a new trend of a younger set of investors who have joined the stock market. Predominantly, we have seen a shift from the traditional 50 plus kind of investor to a new segment of investors who are below 40 years. We introduced a mobile app recently and enabled account openings through that app. So it's a part of the digitization of the exchange. And we found that 80% of those accounts that came, I think we got about 12,000 accounts in 6 months. 80% of that were investors below 40 years of age. So there's a good shift into a younger segment. We have seen indices growing 10% or 10% year on year, and year to date it's up 7% on the main ASPI. So I think there is a lot of potential to be offered in terms of joining the capital market. On a concluding note, given the time constraints, I must say that the CSC is an organization that will reward and recognize performance. And I think it's up to the individual concerned to make it to the top. I can talk about myself as an example. I joined the CDS as an assistant manager in the CDS and ended up as the CEO. To add to that, I did one innings at the CSC, and then I was marketable enough to go out, manage two listed companies, and then I came back again to the CSC as a CEO. So that gives you insight of the versatility of the organization as well. So that's why initially I said joining the exchange, some may feel it's very specialized, but that doesn't reduce your marketability. So you can enter as easily getting to the grind of things, as well as even have you marketable enough to leave and exit and even go for better prospects. So to all those who are aspiring to complete the CFA, we would encourage them to do so. We, even within the CSC, we in fact have a financial scheme to help those who are interested in further pursuing their their studies, and we believe that the CFA qualification is directly relevant to capital markets. And I think we have an entire ecosystem that you can choose from as a career in capital markets, from the stock exchange to the regulator, the SEC, to investment banks. You've heard from stockbrokers, asset managers, portfolio managers, margin providers, underwriters, credit rating agencies. So you have an entire ecosystem that you can choose from after you're equipped with a CFA qualification. So with those few comments, I'll conclude. And again, like others said, I'm happy to take any questions. And if you have more questions, you can directly call me, email me. And if you're interested in joining, you can come onto our website. All our vacancies are available on our website. So thank you.
I think we have one question from the audience. The CSC hire employees on an annual basis?
Not really. I think we don't have such a program. So as and when vacancies are available, then we do advertise. We have a policy of advertising any vacancy, but we also consider candidates from within as well as from external hiring. But as and when there's a vacancy, we advertise. So it's not an annual hire. It's a continuous. Replacement is one, and then as we grow, as we expand, we take more people. And in the recent past, we in fact have been upgrading and expanding, and we've taken more analysts recently. We've concentrated on more research, strategy, analysts, etc. So you can watch our website, and if you're interested, you can certainly put in an application as well.
Thank you very much, Mr. Rajiv, for your valuable insights. It's a great pleasure to have you with us this evening. It will now be the turn of Dr. Naveen Gunawardhana, the co-founder and chief investment officer, and Asanka Herath, head of equities of Linear Wealth Management, to have a word.
Thank you very much. I hope you all can hear me. First of all, on behalf of Linear, I would like to thank the CFA Association for inviting us to be part of this career program. What I will do, in the interest of time, we don't really have a presentation. What I will do is quickly tell you about who we are and what we do. And my colleague Asanka, who's here with me, will talk about what we look for in terms of candidates. My name is Naveen Gunawardhana. I'm one of the co-founders and one of the partners of Linear Wealth. Linear was founded in 2013 by myself and 3 other partners. All 4 of us previously used to work at a firm called Amber Research. That's how we came together. 3 of the 4 founding partners have worked at international investment banks in London, New York, and Hong Kong. And along the way, we got a 5th partner who came on board, Shamindra, who is in London. He's an ex-Brussels investments guy. And then last year, some of you may have seen, Dr. Kumaraswamy, the former governor of the central bank, came on board as our chairman. What do we do? One of the reasons we started Linear is, if you look at Sri Lanka, Sri Lanka doesn't have private banking in the true sense of what private banking is. So we felt that there was a niche business opportunity to form a company that was an independent wealth manager to target a very select niche clientele at the ultra-high net worth segment. So as a company, and that was one of the reasons why we formed Linear back in 2013. As a company, we have 2 business lines, 2 verticals, if you like. One is our institutional asset management platform, which is where we do mainly Sri Lankan equities and fixed income. And then the second line is our multifamily office, where in addition to doing traditional asset management services, we also offer other services which typical multifamily offices offer in the region, and certainly the rest. So that is basically who we are and what we do. If you look at our business, most of you may not have heard of Linear, and I think that's partly intentional. As a company, we do not advertise. We have never advertised since we started. But having said that, we are one of the largest equity managers in the country. I think outside of the state funds, of the state funds, we are the largest equity manager in the country, but again, not a very well-known name. And that's something that we did by design. In terms of our business, if you look at fund management, if you look at wealth management, if you look at investment space, this is very much a people-centric business. We have, including the partners and the directors, we have a total staff of 26. We have a total staff of 26, out of which we have 7 charter holders, including 2 former presidents of CFA Sri Lanka Association, and I believe we have a further 3 staff members who are at various stages of doing the CFA exams. We are, as an organization, as I said, this is very much a people-centric business. Being a very people-centric business, we are very picky about who we take on board. It's not just about academic qualifications, while those are very important. Most of the people at Linear will have a couple of degrees in their belt. We do hire people straight out of universities. Those typically would be folks with perhaps a first-class degree from top-tier university. And I will now pass on to my colleague Asanka to talk a little bit about what we can offer CFA charters.
As Naveen covered, we are investors in real estate as well as few other board areas classes. What it means is that we require smart individuals to join. And when I say smart, it's not necessarily just limited to academic qualifications. We look for individuals who can have independent thinking, who can be contrarian, who can help us make investment decisions with conviction. And most importantly, something that Naveen alluded to, we look for individuals with personal integrity. Anybody who walks through our doors need to be able to relate to those characteristics and exhibit those. And in terms of if they do come on board, what can we offer? So in terms of the macroeconomic research, we constantly conduct top-down analysis. And in terms of stock picking and fixed income research, we do bottom-up analysis. So there's a lot for anybody who join us to gain to our proprietary research platform. I mean, anything that you want?
Yeah, I think thank you very much for that, Asanka. I think in the interest of time, I think running a little bit late, so I will pause there. Just to conclude, we are an independent wealth management firm, been in operation since 2013. As I said, we are very picky about who we take on board. If any of you are interested in talking to us, please do have a look at our website, www.linearwealth.com. Reach out to us, and obviously if you feel that you are a person that you want to talk to, we will then get back to you. Happy to take on any questions if there are any at the moment. And once again, thank you very much to the CFA Association for allowing us to be part of this event.
There seems to be no questions from the audience. Thank you very much, Dr. Naveen and Asanka, for your contribution.
Thank you very much, guys. Thanks. Take care. Good night.
Ladies and gentlemen, now we have arrived to the end of the first segment of the event. And moving right along to the next segment of the evening, it is my pleasure to introduce Mr. Robert Kinzel, Senior Consultant of Nomium, to preside over the soft skills training session. Robert has over 15 years of business training and coaching experience on all 7 continents. After completing his master's in communication studies at the University of Arkansas, USA, as well as Oxford and Cambridge, UK, he began his career first in North America, training politicians, organization administrators, and sales representatives in order to refine their rhetoric and persuasion. Robert worked as a researcher and consultant for global businesses and their agents in 6 countries. In Asia, Robert is former faculty at Sankyeon University, Seoul. He currently works with Fortune 100 and S&P Asia 50 companies throughout the region, conducting workshops and coaching management in presentation, negotiation, personal branding, intercultural communication, influence, writing, and other skills. Robert is twice a distinguished Toastmaster in Toastmasters International and was a World Championship of Public Speaking semifinalist in 2014 and 2015. Over to you, Mr. Robert.
Thank you very much for that kind introduction. And thank you everyone who is watching today, whether you're here with us on Zoom or on YouTube or on Facebook. And in just a few minutes, I'm going to let you know how you can interact and take part in this program. Now, you'll notice that I'm using these virtual backgrounds, and I'm not going to be using the traditional screen share. So those of you who see the gallery view with about 9 different boxes, if you go to that upper right corner and click the speaker view, and it may be a good idea, whoever's running our Zoom today, if you would like to spotlight me, because I will hopefully be large on everybody's screen. So thank you for the kind introduction. As mentioned, my name is Robert Kinzel, and if I was meeting you in face-to-face or maybe in a virtual session, and we could talk back and forth, I might tell you I'm a senior consultant at a firm called Nomium in Hong Kong. Now, as our conversations would continue, I might tell you a few other things about me. One, I love helping teams. I love helping teams explore their communication styles. I have some accreditations and certifications where I give assessments to some teams. The team members talk about their results, and they really formulate a plan for working together and communicating together in the future. And I really love seeing, even in a half-day session, how teams can really come together and work better in the future. I also like large audiences. They're exciting to me, whether it's virtually like today, or whether I'm face-to-face in front of 200, 300, or 400 people. I really find that exciting, whether that's for professional reasons or just social reasons. Now, based on this introduction, if this was a conversation that we were having back and forth, what do you remember about me? And what can you assume about me? Just visualize that for a moment. Does my title, just senior consultant, tell you very much about me? No, but that's often how we're introducing ourselves when we're meeting new people. The real substance of who I am and what I do comes out in the stories that I tell and the bits of information that I share with you. This program for the next hour is all about personal branding. And there's some important things to remember as we get into this idea of personal branding. Remember that we choose who we talk to, whether we go to an event, whether we approach someone in an office, we connect with someone online, we can choose who we talk with, and we can choose what to say. We can choose to casually talk about the movies we watched over the weekend, or we could talk about the research we're doing or the programs that we're involved with. And based on who we talk to and what we say, we can really differentiate ourselves in this very, very crowded marketplace, because there's a lot of people who have a similar education and maybe a similar work experience to us, but there may be things unique to us that connect us with key stakeholders, and that let those stakeholders know how we could help them and how we could help their roles and their businesses in the future. So what are we going to do today in this 1-hour session? We're going to do 4 things. And like I said, it's going to be a little interactive. First, we're going to take a look at what is personal branding. We can come together on a definition of that. Second, we're going to take a look at the importance of personal branding. We're going to have a quick interactive guessing game, a quick guessing quiz. Then we're going to do some personal work. I'm going to have you write some things down, how we can develop our brands, not only taking a step today, but how we can formulate an action plan to really develop and spread our brand in the future. And that's our 4th goal, sharing our brands after this workshop. Now, as I mentioned, this will be interactive. We have people connecting different ways. So those of you here on Zoom, I've got the chat box open, I've got the Q&A box open. So for questions, put those in the Q&A box. I'll do my best to answer them as we go on or at the end of the session. And if I don't answer your question, if you email me, I will answer it later. I promise I'll give you a reply. Those of you who are on YouTube and Facebook, somebody else is monitoring those comments. So if you have a question, put it in the comment section of YouTube or Facebook, and someone will probably relay it to me. And again, you'll have my email if you need it. Those of you on Zoom today, some of the answers for the multiple choice quiz and just any ideas you have, you're welcome to use the chat box. And of course, we do have personal planning. I'll give you a link to fill out, or you could just use pen and paper. So let's talk about what is personal branding. Here's two people. One person here on the left is saying, is this a strong person? They're saying, I'm a great speaker. They're telling other people, I'm a great speaker. Is that a strong personal brand? Just think to yourself. Well, many people will say it's the start of a good personal brand. It's self-marketing. You're spreading the word to people that you're a great speaker. At the same time, what if somebody tells you, I'm a great speaker? They tell everybody I'm a great speaker, but we see them speak and they're not really that great. Self-marketing, hopefully it's true, but personal branding isn't finished here with self-marketing. Here's another example. Somebody else says, oh, hi, it's nice to meet you. I hear that you're a great speaker. Is that a strong personal brand? It is. It's a more complete end result where other people know about us. So what is a definition of a personal brand? You might have read about personal branding. You might have heard about it, talked about it. But do you really have a strong definition? Well, I've got a definition I'd like to use today. There are other great definitions, but I've got a definition I'd like to use that has three key parts. The first part, personal brand is a perception held by others. You can say all day long, I'm a great speaker, I'm a great basketball player, I'm a great piano player. But until other people have that perception of you, your personal branding isn't finished. That perception held by other people, it describes you. It describes your abilities, your traits, your skills, your interests. But it also describes having a relationship with you. Other people, when they talk about you, when you're not in the room, what do they say about you? That is a great example of what your personal brand is, or what it can be in the future if you work on it. Let's think about consumer brands for a moment. We're talking about ourselves as business people, but let's go to brands. Here we have Starbucks. If in the chat box on whatever platform you're in, even if I'm not monitoring the YouTube and the Facebook, you're welcome to share ideas there so other people who are on that same platform can kind of interact together. But in the chat box on whatever platform you're in, is there a word or words that describe this brand from your point of view? What's a word that describes Starbucks? We'll wait and see what comes into that chat box. Okay, I like this one. Thank you, Saranga. Expensive coffee. All right. Now, with that first word that describes Starbucks, some people might see that as a negative, that it's expensive. I don't want to pay $5 US for a cup of coffee, especially if you're doing that every single day. Other people might see expensive coffee as a positive, where it sets them apart. If they're holding Starbucks, maybe it gives them some social status. So someone's definition that, or someone's word that describes Starbucks doesn't mean it's going to apply the same from everyone's point of view. Thank you, Sandunika, the most popular coffee. Usually that's a very positive. When we think about Starbucks, we don't think just about the coffee itself, maybe the price of the coffee, the taste of the coffee, but we often think about the experience of going to a Starbucks. Many people will say it's consistent. No matter what country you're in around the world, it's a consistent experience. It's a consistent taste. It's consistent customer service. The atmosphere, the music, the chairs. There's an experience there that we attach with Starbucks. Now, we could do this with any brand. We could do it with BMW. We could do it with McDonald's. Let's go, though, to a person. Let's take a look at our copyright-free image of Steve Jobs, a famous person most people are aware of. What words describe Steve Jobs? Again, throw anything you can think of in the chat box. This is not a right or wrong answer Q&A session. Okay, thank you very much, Travis. Attention to detail. That's a trait that most people who've learned about Steve Jobs remember about him. And I think a lot of people, even who worked with him directly, or just us as consumers, learned a lot about him. Persuasive, thank you, Saranga. A very persuasive person. Those are two very positive words to describe Steve Jobs: attention to detail and persuasive. Now, are there any negatives? Because not all people are liked by everybody else. And from what I've read, what I've seen about Steve Jobs, there were maybe some negative things people had to say. All right, thank you, Sandanika. Selfish, absolutely. That's if you ever read anything about the people who worked with Steve Jobs, it's his way or the highway. And maybe that was persuasive. Maybe that was attention to detail, but it could also be very abrasive. So we have to remember there's pluses and minuses, whether you're a brand or an individual. Now, we're taking a look at individuals' personal brands, not companies and not famous people. You, maybe someone in this room today is famous, wonderful. But for the average business person, everybody has a personal brand, whether you're aware of it or not. People are discussing you when you're not in the room. What are they saying about you? That personal brand exists. Now, most people around the world, even most business people, don't proactively work on their personal brand. And that's one reason we're having this workshop today, is to give you the steps and a step or two forward to work on your personal brand and know where you might work on it in the coming weeks, in the coming months, and definitely in the coming years. So why is this important? Well, I'd like to get a quick quiz going on. I'm going to give you some multiple choice questions. And in the chat box on whatever platform you're in, just put A, B, C, or D. You didn't study this beforehand, or at least I didn't send out any pre-session work to study. So this is literally just a guessing game. Don't be afraid of the wrong answer. In the global business world, what percentage of jobs are not posted publicly? A, 30%, B, 50%, C, 70%, or D, 90%? What percentage of jobs are not posted publicly? All right, I've got a C and a D popping up in the chat box. Thank you. We're going to go through this quickly. So thank you for those of you who are answering. The answer, 70% are not posted publicly. What does that mean for personal branding? Well, if you don't have a network and connections with people that know about you and your skills and your professionalism, then they may not tell you about those 70% of jobs that aren't public knowledge. Next question, what percentage of jobs are filled through networking at some level? Whether somebody tells you about the job or whether somebody mentions to the boss, hey, I know that person, they'd be great here, or maybe it's a very strong referral. What percentage of jobs are filled through some level of networking? Big variety of answers coming in on this one, which is great. D, 80% are filled with some sort of networking. Now, just because somebody tells you about the job doesn't mean you're going to get the job. Of course, there's the interview, there's the application and everything, but somewhere there's a personal connection that helped you find out about the job or helped you with the higher ups who are hiring. Next question, what percentage of people do not actively network at all? They're not expanding their network. They're not reaching out to new people. They're not reaching out to the people that they already know. A is 10%, B 25%, C 40%, or D 50%. All right, I've got some C's and D's in here. It's B. Everyone's going on that high end, which is a great way to think. More people have this problem, but no, it's 25% of people just don't actively network at all. Now, what percentage of people want to network more, but say they just don't have time? Maybe they don't network at all and they don't have time. Maybe they network a little bit, but they'd like to just network more. They don't have a lot of time though. All right, I've got lots of C's and a D coming up there. It is D. 40% say they just don't have time to network more. So those of you who are sitting here going, man, I haven't networked in a while, I feel like maybe I should network more. Well, thank you for attending this workshop, because we're going to give you some steps and an action plan today to improve your networking, but also you're not alone. Almost half the people in the business world say they don't have enough time to do more. Couple true and false ones. There's only two of these. As people get older, they find more jobs and more positions through their network. So the older you are, the more you use your network to find jobs or other positions. Those could be internal as well. I see some trues coming up there, and that is the correct answer. And finally, people who find jobs that use their strengths and their interest, they're more productive at work and they're just overall happier in life. Is that true or false? I like that, Saranga. Very true. Yes, that one is also true. So this is so important because you have to define what you like. You have to define what you're good at, and you have to share that with people. And by expanding your network based on your strengths and expanding your network based on your interest, that's going to lead you to more positions, whether that's internally in the company you're at now or externally changing firms altogether. Dr. Sarah David, who is one of Forbes' top 75 authorities on career management, I love this quote: "Personal branding is all about your unique promise of value and what you bring to the table. It's also about getting your potential clients to choose you as the only solution to their problem." Now that's a lofty, that's a huge career goal, to say, oh, I'm the only person who can solve this problem. You're getting the other people to choose you. And that's ultimately a long-term goal. But little by little, we can build our personal brand through the interactions we have. Again, who we meet, we can choose that. And what we talk about, we can choose that too. So how can we develop our own personal brands? Well, we're going to start simple today. And I'm going to give you some things to do today. So a couple of myths and realities here. Developing our personal brand. So there's a myth that we often hear. Someone says, I don't have a long career, so I can't build a personal brand. And I was told a lot of the people in this session today, maybe junior in their career, and they say, I don't have any experiences. I've only been working for a year or two. There's nothing I can build. I don't have anything, I haven't gotten a promotion. That's not true at all, because you are more than just the job that you have right now. Any experience is part of your personal brand if you choose to talk about it. If you choose to talk about it in a professional way that shows your strengths and your interest and your skills. This could be childhood achievements, something you did even as a teenager or even younger. School projects that you completed in high school or university especially. Group goals. Sometimes they say, well, I didn't do it by myself. I was in a group that had an achievement. Wonderful. You were part of that group. You made that success with those other people. Talk about it. In your social life, maybe you have a hobby. Maybe it's a sport. Maybe it's a musical instrument. Maybe it's just something that you did traveling. All of those things can tie into your professional life because they show what you've accomplished. They can show that you're outgoing, that you're involved, and successes are still successes even in the social world. Another myth we often hear, I should try to build a brand that appeals to everyone. It says, I've got to have everything about me. Everybody's got to like it all the time. Well, if you try to appeal to everybody, you're only going to probably appeal to yourself. John Perkis, the author of a book called Brand You, I like, there's another quote I love. It says, think of your favorite food. Some people love it, others can't stand it. And the same applies to you. If you're clear about who you are, and what you stand for, some people will flock to you, they'll come to you, and other people will keep their distance because it's not what they're looking for. This makes it easier to find out who wants what you have to offer. If you're a great accountant, let people know you're a great accountant. You don't have to be a great marketer and a great salesperson. Focus on your accounting, because if you want to work in accounting and associate with other accountants, that's who you're looking for. The marketing people may not be your target. So what I'd like to do for the rest of the session today, I'd really like to get you involved. Whether you would like to participate on a just piece of paper with a pen, some people prefer that, no problem. But I've got a type form, and I'm going to put this, I've got a QR code here. You're welcome to scan, especially if you're one of those people who are on YouTube or Facebook. And those of you who are here in Zoom today and you want to do this on your whatever device you're connected with, I've got that in the chat box, so you can just click that link. Now, I'm going to ask you to follow along with our content, because there's different things I'm asking you to input today. Please don't rush through it right now as you're opening it. Actually, don't even fill out number 1 yet, because we're not there yet. At the very end, it's going to ask you to enter your email. If you choose to do that, the only thing you will receive over email are the answers to the form that you have online today. We don't send you spam. We don't put you on a mailing list. This is literally only for your answers. And this link will stay active. So those of you who want to work on this later tonight or tomorrow or next week, we will keep this open for a while and allow you to enter more ideas. So if you get stuck on something today, you can skip it, no problem, because I do have a time limit. So what are we going to do first? Well, as you scan that QR code or you click that link, the instructions that I have here on the screen are exactly what I have on the type form, so you can follow both. But right now, I'm going to put just about 60 seconds on the clock, and I'm going to ask you to enter 1, 2, or 3 words you want others to say about you when they talk about you. Now, hopefully these are true. Don't make stuff up like, I want people to think that I'm a great basketball player if you don't play basketball, right? But think of professional words. Some examples might be adaptive, caring, resourceful. If you can only think of 1, no problem. That's all you need today for this activity. 1, 2, or 3 words that you want other people to think about and say about you when you're not in the room. Think about 30 more seconds. Now, those of you who have hit enter, you've gone on to part 2, no problem. We are doing part 2 and part 3 right now. So part 2, choose one of your words. If you combine 2, that's okay, but let's keep it simple. Take one of those words that you wrote down. Write a sentence or 2 that explains how this word applies to your professional life. For example, if one of your words was adaptable, and somebody said, well, how are you adaptable? Why are you adaptable? How would you follow up? You might say, well, I put myself into new situations and I go with the flow to see where it takes me, to see what happens. 1, 2 sentences at the most. We'll take about 30 seconds or 30 seconds or so. And as we are doing some of these, I am still monitoring the Q&A and chat box. So if there's questions that come up, let me know, especially if there's something you're confused about right now. Hopefully no confusion, but it's always great to check. And finally, part 3 for the moment. Don't go to part 4, only part 3. Again, same QR code, those of you who might have missed the first one. Think of a personal experience that backs up that word that you used. And it backs up that sentence that you wrote. jot just a few keywords to remind you of that experience. So for example, I said I'm adaptable because I try new things and see where it takes me. One example of this might be from university. I joined a film club, and there were some things that happened. I made new friends. I had fun watching new films I'd never seen. We talked about them. Maybe my second year, I got into a leadership position. Maybe I was the secretary of that film club. And that's all stuff that I put on my CV. And it was something I did that was a bit social, but a bit professional. And it reveals something about me. So again, take about 30 seconds. Just jot a few quick words, a past experience, a true experience that expands on that personal brand word and that personal brand sentence. Now, if anybody's stuck and you're like, oh man, I'm not sure, I'm stuck on number 2, I'm not sure which sentence to write, I'm stuck on number 3, I'm not sure what experience backs this up, that's normal. I know we're doing this really quick. And that's one reason we're keeping this form open. So after the program, you can go back through the same form and you can fill it out again. You can see the questions, you can type your answers. And again, if you put your email, you can get the results sent to you. If you're having a trouble thinking of a sentence that describes you or an experience that backs that up, it will just take a little bit more reflection. Have a conversation with a friend, talk about your past experiences, talk about your accomplishments, talk about things that you did that were fun or successful, and see what descriptive words come out of that. Were you adaptable? Were you energetic? Were you a problem solver? Were you caring? But hopefully you can see where this goes. Because if I put, let's say on a formal resume, on a CV, that I'm an adaptable person, and I get into the interview and they say, well, tell me, how are you adaptable? And I say, I don't know. And then they're not going to believe me. And I might come up with a sentence, say, well, I put myself into new situations where I go with the flow to see where it takes me. And the interviewer goes, all right, that sounds really nice. Can you tell me about an experience that you've had where you were adaptable? And you say, I don't know. Again, they're not going to believe you. It's not going to seem authentic. But if you have in your mind a past experience that backs up and explains how you were adaptable, you're ready to go. Now, that's with a formal interview. We're going to talk about formal and informal in just a moment. Let's talk about sharing our personal brands. Once we have an idea about ourselves and we have an experience that we could share somewhere, we've got to go out and we've got to share that somehow. So there's another myth. The best places to share our personal brands are large networking events where there's, hundreds of people and we meet dozens and dozens of people. We get our business card into everybody's hand and everybody's going to remember us. That's a myth. Quick introductions with no substance, no substantial follow-up. It's not building other people's knowledge about you. Remember when I opened, I had a slide and it said, Robert Kinzel, senior consultant. What did that tell you about me? If I just said I'm a senior consultant, I have a job, right? I have a job. Oh, and it says senior. Okay, maybe I've had the job for a while. But that doesn't really tell you much about what I do and who I am as an individual and as a professional. So we need those follow-ups. We need those conversations where you're telling those experience stories. Another myth, I'm an introvert, so I can't find situations to share my personal brand. I don't like going to big meetings. I don't like going to big events. I don't like initiating conversation. Well, the fact is that you don't have to attend large events to get the right stakeholders to know about you. You can have one-on-one conversations. You can have a small group gatherings, small group meetings where you do feel comfortable with whatever size. And if those are important stakeholders, if those are decision makers, or those are people who can connect you with other people, those are the only people you need to worry about. You don't need to worry about 100 people in an event. There may only be one person that you need to meet in a certain situation. We also don't have to meet face to face. There's phone calls, there's video meetings, there's also social media presence, things that you type, emails, and things that you write in group discussions reveal who you are, what you know, and maybe how you can help other people. So going back to that type form, part 4, those of you who see part 4, hopefully you didn't go to part 5 yet. Part 4, same QR code. Take a moment, write down a small informal situation that you could attend, whether it's an event or just, a situation at work, where you could share that personal brand story, that personal brand experience that you wrote about in part 3. Now, what we're looking for here is casual conversations. Yes, we could use your personal brand story in a formal business interview, but most of our personal branding is not in a formal interview. It's in a casual conversation that happens day to day, week to week. The office break room is a great example. Where could you casually have a conversation that reveals your experiences? Yes, Saranga, excellent question. Can it be an online location? Absolutely, especially if that's during the last year, that's where a lot of our networking has happened. We will, at the very end, make a few quick notes about our online presence. But absolutely, if you're networking with people and meeting new people online, whether it's in a discussion group or whether it's in a live video conference meeting like this, absolutely. Now, there are so many answers to number 4. We're just thinking of one right now, and we're going to have an action plan later that builds on this. If you've gotten to part 5, we're going to stop at part 5 right now. We're going to go to the opposite end of that spectrum. Where is a formal situation that you could attend later in your career, whether you're interviewing or you're just networking with senior people? These might be job interviews, meeting the CEO or CFO. Maybe there's a media request. You're asked to, give a quote on for a local newspaper or local website. Think about that situation and think about which qualities and which personal brand stories would be best to sell yourself to those stakeholders. Because when we're having casual conversations, we're just sharing interesting experiences about ourselves. But on that formal end of the spectrum, we do have to sell ourselves sometimes. We do have to come ready to say, here's what I'm good at, and let me give you an example of when I've had success with that. Take about 30 seconds. All right, if you've entered your answers, it took you to part 6. Don't do part 6 yet. Stop at part 5, go to part 6, but don't do anything yet. Let's take a look at sharing our personal brands and increasing our network, because our network, and like Sarunga said, here's a nice example of an online event where we might do some networking and share our personal brands. Dory Clark, who's an author and professor at Yale University, says if you don't share your ideas, no one will know if they're any good. So we've got to go out there, even if we're an introvert, and whether it's online or just person by person, we have to start sharing some things about ourselves so people know who we are and what we're good at. So let's take a look at some couple of networks here. We've got 2 networks. We've got Janet, and Janet's in the middle in yellow, and these are other people Janet knows, and then also other people that they're all connected to each other. And then we have Jackie's network. Now notice Jackie's network doesn't have those same connection lines. Not everybody knows each other. Who is more powerful in their network? And you can just think of this mentally. Janet or Jackie? When I ask this question in a very interactive live group where it's not just a webinar, where we're having discussion back and forth, I usually get a majority of people say Janet. And they say, well, look, everybody knows each other. It's really strong. And look how many connections she has. But if we talk about powerful, yeah, I like this. I like these answers coming in from Travis and Sarunga. It is Jackie, because Jackie connects more people and groups. Not everybody knows each other. Think about these as 3 different departments. We've got the marketing department, the accounting department, and the human resources department. Well, if Jackie's the person connecting them, think about what happens if Jackie disappears. Those people don't have that connection anymore. Jackie's really powerful to connect those people. Not only is she able to organize those different groups, and maybe she has some influence on what the teams look like, but she's going to have people from those groups coming back to her to thank her, maybe ask her advice, or to connect her with new people. And if she's helped those people make those new connections, they may feel a little bit indebted to Jackie and willing to help out Jackie when Jackie needs help in the future. So Michelle Janae, the author of a book called The Connect Worker, says networking is not about just connecting people. It's about connecting people with people with ideas, people with opportunities. It's not just, oh, you two should meet, but I don't know why. It's you should meet because you two each have a project that I think might correlate together. So here is a longer one. We're going to give you about 90 seconds, 60 to 90 seconds for this one. Part 6, same QR code, same link in that chat box. Write down 10 professional people you work and communicate with the most. Now, these are professional people. If you talk to your cousin every day, that doesn't mean that they're a professional connection. If you talk to your cousin every day about accounting work or doing business research and you're sharing business ideas, then your cousin is absolutely a professional connection. But think about your professional network. If you don't get 10, that's okay. Write down up to 10. Who are those people? Just first name is fine. And again, nobody's getting your answers. Only you are getting your answers. Okay, take about 45 more seconds. Your top 10 professional network people. And again, I am still monitoring the chat and Q&A, so if there's questions that have popped up in your head, please ask. Maybe they're relevant now. Maybe we can answer them at the end. And there is a part 7, but don't do part 7 quite yet. Part 7 is the last one, but don't do it quite yet. Now, thinking about those 10 people, and maybe you're thinking of even more than 10, that's okay. But I'd like to share with you 4 possible network limitations. And when I say possible, some people will say that limitation applies to my network, but it does not negatively affect me. Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. That's for you to decide. These are possible network limitations. So first one, we call it birds of a feather. Your contacts are all similar to you. What does that mean? Well, Harvard Business Connections a few years ago said that they found when they were doing some studies and surveys that 73% of people, of business people, said that their professional network were people in their same company. So if you say, you know what, my top 10, they're all in the same firm that I work for. That's really normal. Is that a limitation? It might be. You have to analyze if it's going to be beneficial for you to expand your network out of your current firm. 64% of business people said that they're in the same business unit or team. So those people are, if you're in the marketing department, there are other people in your marketing department. If you're an accountant, there are people in the same accounting team. And 57% people said that their connections are at least in their same specialty. So maybe you're an accountant, but you've got some people in your network that are not in your same company, but they're still accountants. And again, there may be nothing wrong with that, but where's the opportunity? If that's the case, where's the opportunity to connect with people that are maybe in marketing, in human resources? Maybe they're executives. Now, number 2, thinking about your top 10 professional network, the second possible limitation is called network lag, where your contacts are from the past. Maybe they're from past business groups, maybe they're from university. Now, you had a lot of success, you've got a great, strong friendship, but you're not really actively working on anything new with those people. They're not a new contact, or if they're an old contact, you're not continually working on new projects. You talk to them, but you're not really doing anything productive with them. That's possibly network lag. Those are the photos there. It's like those old photos that we keep as a keepsake, which are great, but old news. Number 3 is called echo chamber. That's where the contacts all know each other. That was Janet's. She has a wonderful network. They have a lot of fun. They know each other. They talk, they go to parties and dinners, but she doesn't really connect anybody new because everybody in her network knows each other already. And number 4, we call it pigeonhole. A pigeonhole is a small hole that a pigeon could fit through. And the reason we think about a pigeonhole is when your contacts can't see what you're doing now. You've got a diverse network of contacts. They're in different departments. They're in different companies, different specialties. They're new, but they can't see what you're doing. You're kind of this person on the island, and you're having a lot of success on your island. Your bosses know what you're doing well, but the other people in your network don't know. Saranga, I'm going to answer that question in just a moment. Thank you for putting that in the chat. In the chat box, if anybody has an answer to this, feel free putting it in there. In the world of sales, this is a few decades old, but it's very common if you watch these 80s or early 90s sales movies. They say ABC. When you're in sales, ABC, ABC. Does anyone know what ABC stands for? Great, thank you, Saranga. Always be closing. So you're always trying to close that deal, get them to sign that contract, get them to say yes. You're always closing as this hardcore salesperson. Now, that's, like I said, it's a few decades old. I'm not telling you that that's the model to follow if you're in sales. But related to that, in networking, there's something we like to say ABH. What might that be in terms of networking? All right. I like it. Always be humble. That really goes along well with your question, Saranga, which I will answer in just a moment. It's not always be humble, because sometimes we need to be a little forthcoming, especially if it's in a formal job interview, or especially if a large stakeholder says, tell me about yourself and what have you done? And you go, I'm a mild-mannered business person, and you don't have anything to say. You're not promoting your brand to those right people. But a little more on that in just a moment. The answer to this: always be helping. Now, there's a great quote that goes along with that from the famous Seth Godin. It says, "Networking that matters is helping people achieve their goals." It's not just about, people know that I'm a great speaker. People know that I'm a great basketball player. It's, are you using those skills to help other people? Because remember, our definition of personal branding includes, it's about having a relationship with you. And if you've been helpful to other people, they're going to be more than willing to connect you with other people that you can help. So really quickly, to answer Saranga's question, she says, how not to come across as tooting your own horn when sharing a personal branding story. So how can we make sure that we're not bragging? For example, let's say, I'm a great speaker. Well, there's a couple things to remember here. When we're in a formal situation, we may be expected to sell ourselves. Before this event that I'm doing today, I was asked, send me your bio. And if my bio just said, Robert likes to meet people and he's a very nice person, like, that's not putting forward what I want the professional world to know about me. So if I'm going to meet the CFO, if I'm going to meet the CEO, I may need to be ready to do a little bit of bragging. Being humble may not be what I need and what people are looking for. On the other side, though, when we talk about informal networking, and I'm going to go back here to, I'm going back to one of my slides here. When we did Typeform Part 4, when we talked about an informal situation you could attend to share your personal brand story, the reason why I wrote story is because these are bits of information about your past that other people may casually like to hear, especially if it's in a short story format. We can share our life experiences without bragging. One thing to remember is that if we go up to a group in the office break room, for example, go, hi, everyone, I'm Robert. Let me tell you about how I'm a great speaker. I've been speaking in front of 500 people. It's going to be out of place. And people are like, why is this person just selling themselves? When we go to a party and we just only talk about our job and what we do, they may say, why is this person on work talk right now? We're at a social party. When we start talking to people and asking questions about them, what do you do? And tell, oh, I'd love to hear more about that. Usually they'll reciprocate. They'll say, well, what about you, Robert? What do you do? And that gives you a chance to, be a little more forthcoming and a little less humble. But the conversation needs to go there. The other thing to think about with this question, and I know this is a really long answer, but it's such a great question, Saranga. The other thing to remember is that when we tell stories about ourselves, what we did over the weekend, what we did last year on holiday, it may be in casual, fun conversation, but it implies things about yourself. For example, if we go to Saranga's example, and the example that I used earlier, and it says, I'm a great speaker. Put that back up here. I'm a great speaker. I don't have to come out to somebody and say, I'm a great speaker. Let me tell you all about it. During a conversation, I say, oh, I had a really good time last month. I went to this big networking event. It was on Zoom. We had, 100 people in little boxes, and they asked me this question. It was kind of intimidating, but they asked me to come off of mute and speak to these 100 people. And I told them about some of the restaurants I enjoyed, and I realized I really liked that. I liked spreading restaurant information in front of 100 people, and I think I'm going to do that more. I'm going to go to some other networking events. So I've never said in that conversation, I'm a great speaker, but I talked about speaking events. I talked about situations where I was in, and if I enjoyed it or not, and that lets people, assume some of my skills. And the reason that's so important, and I have this as one of my final quotes today, but when we have so many situations to meet people, to say hello, to ask them questions and get in these conversations where we're no longer selling ourselves, we're just having casual story exchanges about our lives, about our work, and if we have those in our mind, and we know we've written down some of those experiences, we will be ready to talk about them more when those situations come up. So, long answer to a short question, but a very important question. All right. Part 7, this is the final thing I'm asking you to write down today. Again, whether you're on paper or whether you're using this type form, same QR code, same link. Part 7. Who is someone you could connect with to improve your network? So somebody that's valuable to you. Now, maybe this is a person that you've heard about. Maybe you know their name. Maybe it's a type of person. Like, I don't know any marketers. I need to meet a marketer. You could just put down, I need to meet a marketer. But this could also be somebody that might be able to introduce you. So you say, oh, my friend, my friend Billy. Billy knows a lot of people. And I think Billy could be in my network. He could be somebody I could go to help me make some of those connections, right? So think of somebody you need to connect with, or a type of person you need to connect with in the future. Now, that's going to improve your network. But at the same time, how might you help them? Because if you go and say, I need to meet a marketer, I need to meet a marketer, I need something, I need something, I need something, you're just an ATM. You're just getting, taking. And it's okay to ask people for favors, but you have to think about what can you do in return, or what can you propose that might help those marketers? If you're an accountant, how might you help a marketer? And that's something you might put out there. So don't always be thinking, what can I do? I need something, but what can I give back? So take a moment, do part 7. And after you go to part 7, we will you'll see the action plan, and we will review that very briefly, especially for those of you who are not on the type form. All right. We don't have time to go deep into online personal branding, but I'm going to give you 4 quick notes to consider for when you are networking online, or you're just improving your social media profiles. So first of all, do you have an online personal brand? Well, you have a personal brand because people in the real world do talk about you when you're not in the room. That's why we're here today, to develop that personal brand. But what about online? The biggest one that we often recommend globally is LinkedIn. I meet people that say, I don't have a LinkedIn. And I say, well, why not? They say, I don't know. It's free. If you spend 2 hours developing a basic LinkedIn, you never know where that's going to lead. Now, those of us who have an online personal brand, maybe it's LinkedIn, maybe it's there are other sites we won't get into right now, but is your online personal brand current? Another thing we often hear people say, I set my LinkedIn up 2 years ago and I haven't touched it since. Well, you probably have some accomplishments and things that you could do to update that. And when we're updating it, number 3, does it reflect the personal brand that you want? How are you including your personal brand keywords and those experiences and stories that you wrote about today on the type form or on the piece of paper that you're working with? If you've written down the word adaptive, if you've written down the word problem solver, and you have experiences to back that up, where is it on your online brand? Where is it on your LinkedIn? If it's not there, you've got a summary, you've got experiences, you've got education, you've got all these places where you could put that in there. And finally, number 4, thinking specifically about online connections, who could you connect with to help? Not just you, but help them as well. This might be the same person that you have thought about in meeting in the real world, but again, this could be online. So that's all we're going to say about online personal brands. If you have questions, feel free sending them over. But it's just a good thing to think about as we're developing ourselves, especially in the digital age and over the last year of online networking. Looking at our online personas is an excellent idea. So same QR code, same link. I've got 3 action plans and they each have 3 things. So I've really given you 9 things that we strongly recommend that you do. First, develop your personal brand story later. Whatever you wrote down on the type form, when you talked about your experience that backs up your skill or your interest, develop it. When I say develop it, maybe write it out, but definitely speak it, say it, practice it. And aim for about 30 seconds to 2 minutes. We don't want something that's too short, but we don't want something that goes on and on and on and on and on. So something that you could add quickly into a flowing conversation in a small group or in a formal interview, putting it out there, quick, short, concise answers. Number two, take that story, take that experience and share that with a trusted friend or colleague. Ask them, what did you like about it? What was missing? What else would you want to know? And get that feedback and continue to develop it. Next, find an informal situation in the future to casually share that story. So you've written down the story, you've gotten some feedback, keep it in your mind. Where could that story come out? Now, like I said, you're not trying to go into the office break room and say, hey, everybody, let me tell you about a speaking experience I had. They're like, where did that come from? But if it's a relatable human story that's true and authentic, you're going to find times where the conversation comes up where you can share it, or maybe you gently guide the conversation that way. That's a topic for another day. When you get these personal brand stories, keep it on file, write down some notes, and think about, in a professional situation, what professional stories can you bring to when you do need to brag and boast about yourself. And continue to develop personal brand stories using other personal brand words, because you're more than 3 words. If you said adaptable today, wonderful, great start. Write down 10 more. Think of 10 more personal brand sentences and 10 more personal brand stories that you can continually develop and share casually and formally. And our final action plan today, connect with at least one new person that you can help, that you have something to offer, whether it's information or your time. Update your social media profiles to reflect your preferred personal brand, maybe some of those keywords and experiences that you wrote today, and try to find a new social media discussion group. Going back to LinkedIn, there are tons of professional groups on LinkedIn. They ask questions, they comment, they share resources. You don't have to meet them in real life to develop your personal brand. And if you're one of those introverts out there, that's a wonderful way to get some exposure. So I've got one more quote from you today, and it's from me. Every conversation and every online comment is a chance to show others what we enjoy, what we do well, and how we could help them in the future. So day by day, week by week, month by month, if you proactively build your personal brand, you are going to have a much better professional brand reputation with a large number of people. And when you need it, you'll probably have people in your network that you can go to help. One final time, there's that QR code. If you want to, it's going to be active. That link's going to be active for at least a couple weeks. So if you want to keep doing this, developing some other brand statements and some other brand stories, you can. I've got my email on there, and it's on the screen as well. If you send me an email, I promise you that I will write back. If those of you who want to find me on LinkedIn, I'm happy to communicate there. My name, Robert Kinzel, is not a very common name, so it's gonna be easy to find me. And those of you who are here on Zoom, I've put that in the chat box. That is my hour. Thank you for being here. If anybody has questions, I am still monitoring. Otherwise, I will put myself on mute. Thank you for listening. Thank you for your participation. And I look forward to any questions we have in the future. I'll pass my virtual microphone back to our MC.
Thank you very much, Ms. Robert. It was indeed a very insightful, interactive session. And I think everybody gained a sound knowledge on personal branding through your presentation. We are very proud to have you with us this evening. Now, I would like to invite Mr. Suranga Sarukali, CFA, a candidate council committee member of CFA Society Sri Lanka, to conclude today's session.
Yeah, I'm Suranga Sarukali, and I'm a chart holder as well as a volunteer at the CFA Society Sri Lanka Candidate Council. It is with great pleasure that I would like to present a few closing remarks for the inaugural CFA Society Sri Lanka Candidate Council CareerNext Live. So in closing, and in behalf of all of us from the CFA Society Sri Lanka Career Candidate Council, I would like to first of all thank all the corporate participants of CareerNext for their attendance and their taking time to make their presentation at CareerNext on both the first and the second day of CareerNext Live. Meanwhile, I would say I would be remiss if I did not thank our panel of CFA charter holders as presented on their personal experience as CFA charter holders navigating the career landscape. Moreover, I would also like to thank and of our most heartfelt gratitude to Mr. Robert Kensel, who presented the soft skills guidance session for CareerNext for an excellent addition to the event. Last but not least, I would like to thank the compere, Danusha, and the other volunteers working behind the scenes to make CareerNext a success. Candidates to the CFA program must also be reminded that they can learn more about the CFA Candidate Council and the CFA program by visiting either the CFA Society Sri Lanka website and even the CFA Institute website respectively. Furthermore, don't forget to download the CFA program booklet produced by the CFA Society Sri Lanka Candidate Council. Finally, thanks to everyone who attended CareerNext and have a good night.